Hello everyone, this is Repeat Ron, and today we're going to be talking about the Commando. The All-American class is here. The Commando is a key player to the team, with the ability to mow down waves of small Zeds and increase the time of Zed time. Increasing the length of Zed time can dramatically increase the team's chances of survival. This becomes even more useful at higher levels, especially at max level of 25. As the Commando, you start out with your trusty AR-15 assault rifle, 9mm pistol, K-bar knife, and not one, but two high explosive grenades. The AR-15 is a trusty and reliable source of damage, coming with a 3-round burst option and a semi-auto mode. For me personally, I always keep it on the semi-auto option, as it helps me conserve ammo. I feel like the burst mode just uses up ammo unnecessarily quick. The AR-15 can be upgraded 4 times, and surprisingly gets very strong. At maximum upgrade, it becomes twice as strong as it originally starts out as, and gains an additional 4 weight. As for the 9mm pistol and the K-bar knife, the Commando is actually one of the most effective classes to use these weapons, at least when you hit level 10 and can get the fallback skill. This allows you to be very safe in the very first few rounds of the game, allowing you to conserve ammo and still deal high amounts of damage with your knife and with your pistol to any of the small enemies. Your high explosive grenades will also serve you well, especially into the later rounds, allowing you to break up crowds and dealing heavy damage to large Zeds, especially flesh pounds. The second weapon available to the Commando is the Bullpup. The Bullpup is your first option for a fully auto gun. You can also fire this weapon in semi-auto mode if you wish to conserve ammo. When fully upgraded, this gun gains 85% more damage than what it started out as, at the cost of 3 additional weight. Overall, I don't really like the Bullpup. I personally find it a little bit lackluster. That's not to say that it's a terrible weapon, it's just not one of the more outstanding ones. For tier 3 weapons, you have your choice of the AK-12, the M16, and the MKB-42. So, let's take a look at the AK-12 first. The AK-12 can be fired full auto or in burst fire. Full auto gives you better control over your ammo consumption, but burst fire gives you a much higher rate of fire. However, firing in burst auto can make you run through ammo very quickly. When fully upgraded, the AK gets an additional 30% bonus damage at the addition of 2 extra weight. One thing to mention also about the AK-12, for whatever reason, the AK was recently nerfed. I have really no idea why. I personally don't like the AK until you hit level 20 and can get the hollow point skill. Otherwise, the recoil is just too hard to manage. So I really find it strange that they would also just nerf its damage as well, making it not nearly as an effective an option as it used to be. The M16 is a cross-perk weapon available to both the Commando and the demo. And man, is this weapon fun. This is the weapon that I would definitely recommend anybody who is new to playing the Commando. The M16 does good damage and pretty much has almost no recoil. It also comes with a very powerful underbarrel grenade launcher. This can be used very similar to the high explosive grenades, dealing heavy damage to a large target like a flesh pound, or softening up smaller crowds of Zeds. Upon fully upgrading the M16, you get a nice 40% bonus damage, and that also counts towards the grenade damage as well. Once again, this is just for 2 additional weight. And then for our final tier 3 weapon, we have the newest weapon added, which is the MKB-42. And to be honest, I really haven't used this weapon a whole lot, but when I have used it, it has been very, very fun. I originally thought that the lower rate of fire would make this gun very underwhelming, but honestly, I feel like it has the right amount of recoil for its rate of fire. It does have a good amount of recoil per each round, but with the slow increments of fire, it allows you to reset very easily between shots, so it doesn't feel as jumpy as like the AK does. When fully upgrading this weapon, it gets additional bonus 40% damage. Now, this weapon honestly feels like a more powerful AK and is probably one of my favorite weapons for the Commando at this point in time. Alright, now moving forward to tier 4 weapons, you have your choices of the SCARH, the Stoner 63, the FNFAL, and the HM Tech 401 Medic Assault Rifle. The SCARH can be fired in full auto or in semi-auto. This weapon is great for engaging enemies at longer ranges. This is another weapon that I would recommend to people new to the Commando. This weapon is very easy to conserve ammo with even when firing in full auto. Even in full auto, its recoil is very manageable, allowing you to empty an entire clip into a larger Zed's head without too much difficulty. Once the SCARH is fully upgraded, it gains an additional 22% bonus damage at the cost of 1 extra pound. Moving our focus on to the next tier 4 weapon, the Stoner 63, the first and only light machine gun in the game so far. This is also one of my favorite commando weapons. It's so much fun to just go with all the magazine upgrades and just go full Rambo with this weapon. This is another weapon I would highly recommend to new players. The huge magazine and a high rate of fire makes it a very tempting option. There is only one real downside to this weapon, and that is that it is very slow to reload. Once upgrading this weapon, it gains an additional 27% bonus damage at the cost of 1 extra weight. Next up is the FN FAL. The FAL does the most amount of damage of any of the assault rifles, aside from the M16's grenade attachment. The FAL can be shot both in full auto and semi-auto, and man does this thing got some kick to it, especially when you decide to go crazy in the full auto mode. Upgrading the FAL gives it 15% bonus damage at the cost of 1 extra weight. This weapon is very fun. It's also a pretty good cross perk weapon for the sharpshooter, but we'll get to that eventually. And for our final tier 4 weapon, we have the HM Tech 401 Medic Assault Rifle. The Medic Assault Rifle, like any medic weapon, comes with the ability to heal teammates thanks to its healing darts. Healing darts can not only be used to heal enemies, but also to poison Zeds. The poison damage is very, very minimal and is not a very recommended strategy. However, the poison effect can be somewhat useful. Whenever a Zed is poisoned, it seems to be less likely to do whatever its special ability is. So it seems like Skrakes and Flesh Pounds are less likely to go berserk or enraged. Sirens are less likely to scream, Bloats are less likely to vomit. However, it doesn't seem like it completely nullifies their effects of being able to do this. Upon upgrading the 401, it gains an additional 15% bonus damage, 1 additional weight, and 10% reduction on the healing dart charge time. Overall, I really like the Medic Assault Rifle. It is pretty manageable in all aspects, as well as it gives you the ability to heal teammates, so I find it a very solid weapon. And finally, for most classes, they only get up to tier 4 weapons, but not the Commando. Well, technically. The final weapon in the Commando's arsenal is the HM Tech 501 Medic Assault Rifle. This is a weapon that combines the Medic Assault Rifle with the M16. With this weapon's secondary fire, it fires medic grenades that explode out at any range as soon as they hit the ground. These medic grenades will heal all allies within the area, as well as damage all enemies and inflict poison damage, which deals additional damage over time, as well as the poison effect onto enemies. This weapon is actually a lot of fun to use. It is very expensive, but honestly, I'm really not sure if it's better than the HM Tech 401 Medic Assault Rifle for all intents and purposes. And this weapon cannot be upgraded whatsoever. It's already a tier 5 weapon. Alright, now that we've looked at all the Commando weapons individually, let's look at some weapon combinations, builds, and tips for the Commando. Honestly, the loadout that I usually go with is really any 2 of the Commando's assault rifles, unless I'm going with the Stoner, and that is mostly what I'd recommend with anybody. Pick your 2 favorite assault rifles or 2 assault rifles that complement the team the best, or just go with the Stoner and clean up. So if you wanted the highest amount of consistent damage, go with the FN FAL and the AR-15. If you wanted to go something with the Stoner, you could go with the Stoner and either Katana or C4, and then either Medic Pistol or dual 9mm, as dual 9mm are actually pretty good with the Commando. But honestly, you could really go with any 2 assault rifles that you wanted. You could go with the M16 and the Medic Assault Rifle, the Bullpup and the AK, whatever it might be, it's your choice. And then if you have any spare weight, fill it in with something like a Medic Pistol or a dual 9mm or a C4 or a Katana or something. The reason why I recommend Katana is because Commando does have a problem dealing with Flesh Pounds and Skrakes. Melee weapons do allow you to block much better and minimize the amount of damage that you'll take. Somewhat of a similar concept going with C4, and that is that you can get a lot of burst damage out immediately with it on something like a Skrake or a Flesh Pound. Alright, let's look at some Commando builds. The first is my Commando build that I've been using. At level 5, I go with Tactical Reload. Honestly, at level 5, either high capacity magazines or Tactical Reload, they're both pretty good, and both pretty equal in my opinion. I just prefer Tactical Reload a little bit more. At level 10, I go with Fallback, and I actually stay with Fallback now because the 9mm has been buffed so much that it actually becomes pretty much a third weapon that's pretty good with the Commando. It also increases the weapon switch speed, which I found to be very, very useful with the Commando. Before, I would start with Fallback for the first few rounds and then switch to impact rounds, but honestly I've found that fallback has been much more consistent with me now. At level 15, I switch between Tenacious and Prepared. I start out with Tenacious because it gives you the bonus health and bonus armor, so you don't have to worry about that as much in the early rounds. However, switching to Prepared later on if you're with a team usually is a good idea, as you'll be able to carry more ammunition to kill a lot more smaller Zeds. However, it's not necessary, you could still stay with Tenacious. At level 20, I definitely go with the hollow point rounds. The bonus damage is nice, but the bonus recoil is amazing with pretty much all the Commando weapons. It makes the M16 have virtually no recoil and become a laser rifle. Same goes with pretty much either of the medic assault rifles, the bullpup, the AR-15. It makes the AK much more manageable, as well as it makes the Stoner 63 even more manageable. So overall, it's just a very good perk. And then finally at 25, I go with Machine Gunner. This just allows me to fire faster and do more damage in Z time, which I like a bit more than Tactician, although Tactician honestly could be switched out for this. I like both of them pretty well, and they both fit the Commando's playstyle really no matter what weapon you're using. The second build I'd recommend for the Commando is the Stoner build. This is going primarily with the Stoner and pretty much being cleanup control for any of the small Zeds. This build isn't as necessary if you have multiple people on the team that can deal with small Zeds like SWAT, Firebug, and other Commandos. At level 5 you start out with high capacity magazines, as the increased reload time isn't as big a deal with the Stoner, and the high capacity magazines adds a lot more ammunition for you to use up. At level 10 you can switch between fallback or impact rounds for reasons I've already mentioned. At 15, once again, you can switch between Tenacious and Prepared. It really depends. You could go with more ammunition if you just want to keep spraying. You could go with Tenacious if you wanted to stay alive longer. At 20, I would still recommend hollow point rounds, as I feel like they're much more useful than Eat Lead. The bonus damage and bonus recoil is just too big to overlook. And then finally at 25, Machine Gunner or Tactician, it's your choice, because both of them are very good with this weapon. So now that we've looked at the builds, let's talk about some tips. The first tip I'd recommend for any Commando is focus on the small Zeds and focus on headshots. Now that seems very basic and kind of a no-brainer to most people. The small Zeds are where you're going to want to be focusing on. You're not going to want to try to be the first one to engage on a big Zed like a Scrake or a Flesh Pound. That's better for other classes to do that. However, if they are attacking you, then feel free to spray at them. And focusing on headshots will just allow you to cut down on your ammo usage, so you won't be spending as much for ammo, and you can spend more for upgrades. Again, this is a very basic and blanketed tip, but I felt like it should still be included. The second tip is use your high explosive grenades to stop Flesh Pounds in their tracks. You can usually chuck 4 to 5 grenades out and kill a Flesh Pound with that. Now that takes care of one Flesh Pound, which could give you a lot of problems otherwise, so don't be afraid to spam your high explosive grenades, so long as you're not doing it in a close quarters where you might kill yourself. The third tip I would recommend is getting used to your 9mm and your knife. Both these weapons are actually very good with the Commando, and the 9mm can seem somewhat underrated with the Commando, as it actually becomes extremely powerful, at least with upgrades and the fallback skill. And then the fourth tip is don't just be spraying at everything. That's a good way to get the team killed. You want to manage your bursts on enemies that will not pose a huge threat to your team. So don't just be spraying into a group and end up making 3 or 4 Scrakes angry and have them all charge at the team. That could be very bad for you. And then finally, for Zeds that the Commando is good against or bad against, honestly the Commando is good against most Zeds, exceptions being the Flesh Pounds and the Scrakes, as they don't really have a good way of dealing with them outside of the high explosive grenades and the M16 grenades, which are not the most reliable source of damage. But for anything else, you're pretty good. Gore Fiends I have seen give some people quite a bit of trouble, as they are somewhat tanky and move quick. So this wraps up my guide of the Commando. If I missed anything, or you have any tips for people, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. I'm sure they would appreciate them. I certainly do. And thank you guys so very much for watching this video. Be sure that you guys are subscribed to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment down below telling me what you thought of the video. And as always, if you guys have been having a good day, keep on having a good day. If you guys have been having a bad day, well, I hope this video made your day just a little bit better. I hope to see all of you guys next time. Until then, stay cool, and bye.